Okay, welcome everyone to ARTIVISM, the Power of Art for Social Transformation. Today, December 12th, 2022, is our last presentation for the fall season 4. We will be beginning season 5 in the spring, sometime in February. Take it away, Rowan.
Hi, my name is Rowan McKiernan. I'm a student at Adelphi University. Something that I do to push social transformation is I write poetry, generally about mental health and trauma. And I also was co-founder of the ARTIVISM Club on Adelphi's campus, which works to promote social transformation through art. So I would now like to introduce our artivist for today, Blanka Amezkua. Blanka Amezkua is an artist, cultural promoter, educator, and project creator based in the South Bronx, with exhibitions at P.S.1 Contemporary Art Center, the Bronx Museum of the Arts, Queens Museum, el Museo del Barrio, the Elizabeth Foundation for the Arts, San Diego Art Institute, and the Delaware Center for the Contemporary Arts, Art Base Brussels, among others. Amezkua's practice is greatly influenced and informed by folk art and popular culture. And in 2008, she began an artist-run project in her bedroom called the Bronx Blue Bedroom Project, or BBBP, which ran from 2008 to 2010. Between 2010 and 2016, she lived in Athens, Greece, where she initiated FokiaNou 24/7, now FokiaNou Art Space, in the center of the Hellenic capital. Blanka currently operates AAA3A, or Alexander Avenue Apartment 3A, an alternative artist-run project which offers food, dialogue, workshops, and art in her living room. She's an active member of Running for Ayotzinapa, and I apologize, I don't think I pronounced that right, 43, an international community of runners based in New York City that promotes dialogue and consciousness concerning human rights violations worldwide. Mentions of her work and projects can be found in various notable national and international publications. Please welcome Ms. Amezkua.
Thank you so much, Rowan, and thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of your community of artists and activism. RG, thank you for having me here. Carolina, it's indeed a pleasure to be able to share with you some of the work that I do and that I've been doing here in South Bronx since 2016. And maybe I can start by just sharing with you where I am and where the project is based. So I'm originally from Mexico. I was born in Mexico, and I moved to California, or my parents, brought me to California at the age of 4 years old, and I was there for part of my elementary teaching, and then I went back to Mexico, and then I came back to study at Fresno State for university. After I graduated, I moved to San Francisco, and since I became an artist, I felt that the one place in the United States where I could go and where I would feel that perhaps there were more opportunities would be in New York City. So in 2003, I moved to New York City, and I began this journey of trying to understand more, not so much, more about my own work, and also to just really understand what being and what New York City represents, not only for an artist, but just for humanity and for all of us that are always curious about the city itself. I was offered a job in the Bronx to become an art teacher, to teach middle school in Hunts Point. That is the reason why I've moved to where I currently am. I am in Mott Haven, South Bronx, and I've been actually in this apartment since 2005, and I taught for about 5 years. And during those 5 years, many things happened. Like I said, since I'm not originally from New York. New York does a lot of things to all of those that are not from the city. I feel it's a very unique place because it really forces you to think about not only of ways to survive in the city, because things feel very accelerated. There are different communities. It is, for me, it's been the most diverse city that I've lived in. It's very enriching because of that. You see all the different migrations that have arrived in the city, and you see where they decided to call home. And when you go to the different communities, you always find, as all good immigrants that we are, we take our food with us, we take our culture, we take all of those things that we treasure from the places that we come from. So it's quite you know, after you live in New York and you see how many people have stayed in this place, and how many of us call it home, you see why, because of the richness that is really all over the place and all over the city. You know, I mean, like I said, I live in South Bronx, and it's so easy for me to just move around in all directions. I also don't drive. I'm actually the only one, I think, in my entire family that does not drive, even though I did grow up in, you know, I spent a large part of my life in California, where you really need a car. But arriving in New York City, I just realized that it's not, public transportation is pretty good, and you can move all over the place without the need of a car. So I thank New York City for that. So as I was teaching in South Bronx, I began also understanding what were the programs available, what for artists, what kind of, let's say, support system, you know, exists in the city. And I began to understand, you know, where museums and galleries that I could possibly submit work to, or who I could collaborate with. This took some time. Like I said, I arrived in 2003. And in 2005, I finally had let's say, a full-time job. And the wonderful thing of having a full-time job is that you're able to actually be able to pay for all the things that will make it easy for you, or, you know, easier for you to maneuver within the city. So I was able to now I have the home, and I was able to create more of a community in a place where, you know, it was new for me. It was a place that I did not, like I said, I didn't know anybody in the city except for my husband. So we came, and there was a lot of things to learn, and a lot of things to kind of understand also where we would, how we would, you know, find our place. And me being an artist, I began to submit to different organizations. Luckily, I happen to be in a city that has a very, you know, extensive history of artists, you know, it's a city that people come to the city. You know, you come to New York City, when I'm speaking about visitors or tourists, you know, they come to experience a huge chunk. You know, you come to see the city itself for its architecture, for the things that it offers. But as artists, we come for the possibility of having exposure for our work, and also to see how our work will develop, and how it will, you know, how you can begin to understand where your placement is within, let's say, the history of art, or that moment that you're living in. So I began to apply to different possible organizations where I could, you know, possibly receive a grant. And from that, once you receive a grant, perhaps, you know, people begin to see your work, and other people get to understand that maybe you can also collaborate with them. And this happened to me. I began to exhibit actually formally. It took me 3 years, even though I had some work already when I moved to San Francisco. But when I was in New York, you know, spending time teaching, you know, that's a lot. It actually took a lot for me to adjust to the city. And I really began to exhibit in 2006. So that took me about 3 years. And as you're moving around and you're making friends, and you know, I moved to New York City when I was in my mid-30s. So at that point, many things were possible, and other things were not possible. There are things that you actually, as an artist, you can participate if you if you're younger than 30 years, if you're younger than 30, and some things that you can't apply if you're even, you know, if you are younger than 30. So I needed to balance and try to find the things that I could. So that took some time, some adjustment, and some understanding of what are the things that I could possibly, where I could participate. So there are many applications that you can send into different, you know, organizations, arts organizations, and different, the Bronx Council had has different art offerings, but it's I'm in a city where there are many artists. San Francisco was a large city, but compared to New York, you would almost feel that San Francisco is a rural little town. So the competition is real in New York. And I realized that the Bronx Museum offered a wonderful project called The Artist in the Marketplace. And I applied for the Artist in the Marketplace for about, maybe 2-3 times until I finally was accepted in 2008. And I mentioned the Bronx Council for the Bronx Museum's program, Artists in the Marketplace, because that actually was the project that introduced me to many other artists that also, many of them lived in the Bronx, but they were also coming from other parts, from other boroughs, from other parts of the city. And through that program, I was able to learn more about how the gallery system works, how really the museums are shaped and formed, and what was the possibility of me moving through that mechanism that already exists. And I believe it's a 9-month program where we were guided through different seminars of how to maneuver within the market, the gallery or the art world market system. And during that time, I was fortunate to meet someone by the name of Jackie Battenfield. And Jackie is an artist in her own right, a very talented artist, but she was someone that actually was sharing information of what it is that we needed to do, to get that work out there and make sure that you're visible. At that point, of course, I didn't have a gallery, and I still at this point in time do not have gallery representation. But I realized through her that that's not the only way that you can continue to create your own work and continue to do work. So now I will get to the part of how it is that I began to work, to use my living space as a project space, as an artist run space. Jackie Battenfield, for me, really, she forced me to actually consider what were the possibilities of exhibiting in different art spaces. This is not something new. It has been done throughout history in different parts of the world. Artists need visibility, so what we do is we look for places to exhibit. It has been in homes, in shops, and you name it, any space where you feel that there could be transit, there could be people coming in and out that might be able to see the work, and hopefully they'll become interested, that they might want to purchase it, because as you sell your work, you're able to continue working. And in one of the seminars, she said something about, not only was she telling us, that it is important for us to look for help whenever, as artists, you need help. Even if you need a canvas and you don't have the means for acquiring something, there's always something that we all have as human beings. We need to learn how to ask, and you ask. By asking, there will be someone out there that might have what you're needing, what you need. But if you don't ask for things, you simply will never get them. So she just, in a very simple way said, you need to learn how to ask, whether it is you need, help to pay the rent, or you need help to buy materials, whatever it is that you need. And if you cannot make that happen, ask for it. And that always stayed with me, because I come from a tradition where that is really not something that was encouraged. In my growing up in a somewhat conservative immigrant Mexican family, that's the last thing you want to do, is to ask, because you don't want to impose anything on anyone. You don't want to burden someone for something that you feel that they might not have. So you just simply do not ask. That's a no-no. And when I heard her say, when Jackie said, you have to learn how to ask for things, she said it in such a way that I felt like she gave me the liberty to ask. I thought to myself, here I am in the Bronx. I don't have my support system, because I moved all the way to the other side of the country. Everybody that I knew remained in California, except for Leo. And here I am trying to make my way through New York City and I just needed to learn how to ask. And it was something very, in some way, it was some sort of magical that she said that. So I kept that in the back of my head. It kept and it still resonates, you know. And now I'm pretty good at asking now. I think people want me not to ask anymore, you know, because I'm good when I need something. I voice it, and I know there's always someone willing to help me out. And you'll see how that happens in the project as I will share that with you. So I moved to South Bronx, and I'm part of the AIM program at the Bronx Museum. And mind you, that is a very competitive program to get into. So as an artist who is not from New York, and having had that validation of being accepted after my third try, I felt very, very fortunate and very honored. And I also felt like it was a responsibility. It was a responsibility in the sense of, okay, now I'm part of this program. I have been accepted. What am I going to do with all of the things that I'm taking from the program? Not only are taking the suggestions, but some doors are opening because I am part of this program. What am I going to do with this? In 2000, I don't know if you remember, Rowan, you might be a little young for this, but 2007, 2008, we went through a financial crisis. This is not something new that happens to economies worldwide, but something very, and it was actually during the year that I was part of the AIM program. And what we all started noticing was that many galleries began to close. And many things started to change within the gallery system, you know, where before you would go and there was an opening and they would have food and they would have the drinks and everybody's, you know, just hopping from gallery to gallery. And that's whether, you know, you want to see it, you know, some people would say, well, you know, maybe that wasn't so necessary because some people would just go and get drunk and not really even look at the artwork. But in retrospect, when I think back of what the implication of having something available for you to just snack on and have a drink and be able to have a conversation with people that are there, because, you know, that's what you naturally do in a space like that and during the openings, that was taken away from us. And it happened in such a way that I'm not saying that that's the only reason why I would go to the opening, but it's just something that would enhance the experience. That was removed. And so as I began to see how certain things were being taken away because of the situation that we were all experiencing, and I began to really reconsider what Jackie had mentioned. And I also started to think about, you know, I go to many spaces, whether they're institutional organizations, you know, art museums or official spaces where art is exhibited, but I also like to go to a lot of alternative spaces because they not only exhibit artists that you would not see in a more formal art spaces, but you have more of a closeness with the artists that are presenting the work. The spaces that are alternative also don't have the responsibility or such a huge, you know, burden of paying a high rent for the space. And there's also a lot of experimentation that can take place in a space like that. So I began to see that the living room that I have in South Bronx was, you know, it's not a huge living room, but compared to other spaces that I've seen or other apartments in New York, it actually is a large space. You know, it's the hall, the living room is long. That I began to just fiddle with what could happen in the apartment. So in 2008, what I decided to do, as I'm part of the AIM program, I decided to open up my bedroom. And I decided to open up my bedroom, like I said, based on all these things that were happening within the city, that places were closing down. I was part of the AIM program. And I began that project with many of the artists that were part of the AIM program, became the artists that exhibited in my apartment, in the bedroom. So I began with the bedroom. And that was the first time. I had never done anything of that nature. I had never been, you know, involved with projects that involved many other artists or even, you know, or curating anything. But by the fact that I opened up the bedroom, it created a lot of curiosity with people within the community here in South Bronx. And also there was, you know, it had resonance within New York City. because of the nature of the project, like I said, being in the bedroom, people were just very curious to see how I exhibited the work in the bedroom. And I just had a mattress in the bedroom, and the entire bedroom was empty. So it was very important that the artist be a installation artist, that they would create something that was three-dimensional, so that people that would see the artwork would navigate within the space. So I actually I would discourage artists, or I would not actually invite artists that were either photographers or painters. It all had to do artists that really created, some type of sculptural form, or if it began from the wall, then it would have to be extended through the space. And during that time, many of my artists, some were kind of disappointed that I was not, exhibiting photography or painting exclusively, so that they could also participate. But things changed around when I came back in 2016. So I began in the bedroom, and I began to also understand that I did not only did my own personal life was affected by opening up the bedroom, in the sense of people were just curious why Blanka, who is formally trained as a painter and is a mixed media artist, is all of a sudden also exhibiting artists in her bedroom. It really began to change. So people began to have an interest to see what was happening. And what I realized is that in retrospect, I think it was in some way a way for me to create community in a place and in a city that, despite the fact that we can be millions of inhabitants in the city, you can also feel very lonely. So I began to do this, invite the artists. It was important for the artists to exhibit for the duration of 1 month. I would also ask them to cook a meal that we would share with community members. I comfortably, with what I have, with the furniture that's in the apartment, we could fit about 14 to 18 people comfortably to have a dinner. So they would not only exhibit here for the duration of 1 month, they would give also a workshop based on the work that they were exhibiting, and they would cook a meal. So for the Bronx Blue Bedroom Project, the artists were here with me, for a very long time. So I really got to know these artists. I mean, these are artists that are my personal friends. They are my family on this side of on this coast. So they're very close to me. They are actually artists that I still, to this day, I spend time with them, and we whenever I have any doubt about something that I need, or a recommendation about what to do, because many of them are still practicing artists, not all of them, but many of them continue to create work. I still, I reach out to them for recommendations and suggestions. So as you mentioned, Rowan, in my CV, that in my bio, that I did, I left the Bronx in 2010, but I didn't really leave. I went to Athens for 6 years, and then I came back in 2016. And it was necessary to do that change because many personal things were happening, or things that I needed to just remove myself from the city to give space for some healing that needed to happen. And going to Greece was, for me, a place that really offered many new experiences, because I arrived in a place that was also going through a lot of difficulties, a lot of transitions, a lot of economical a lot of social unrest because of the economic crisis that was taking place at that time. But those 6 years served gave me many lessons of ways to also create work, not only for my own personal work, but also in public space. And being in Greece, I was actually doing things in public space that I had never done before. And I still have not done them in New York, because the open space has a very different connotation in Greece, as well, I would say in Athens. I feel that more things are permissible in public space in Athens, where I feel that after September 11, in not only New York City, but in the US as a whole, we treat public space in a very different way. It is too protected, it's too restricted, and it's virtually impossible to do the things that I did in Athens, to repeat that here in the Bronx or in New York City, because I feel that I would need permits, or I would always have to be consulting the city to see if it's okay for me to do those actions or not. So when I came back in 2016 and I came back to the same apartment here in South Bronx, as I looked at the space again, I decided that I didn't want to do things in my bedroom anymore. So I began to consider the living room. And I'm showing you the image of, I took this image from Wikipedia, because whenever anybody thinks of the Bronx, and it doesn't matter what part of the world you're in, the first thing they say is like, oh yes, the Bronx is burning, and why are you in the Bronx? It just seems like such a rough neighborhood. And I think in their mind, they still think that the Bronx looks like that image. That there's things that that are still there's empty buildings, there's a lot of hardships, there's people just roaming around the streets with nothing to do. That we're still confronting the same difficulties as the difficulties that we're confronting in this community in the 70s. Sadly, there are still many issues that have not been taken care of since the 70s. There's many issues. I would recommend that whoever is watching this, if you've never been to South Bronx, not only because you can come and visit AAA3A, but I would highly recommend that you come and visit not only South Bronx, but the Bronx in general. The Bronx is a very complex place, as any borough in New York City, as any place in the world. But the communities that inhabit the Bronx and the things that happen in this specific location, because it happens to have a very specific history, for me, are the reasons why I stay here and why I continue to be here and why I continue to call the Bronx home. And for that reason, I created the project, and I created the project not only for the community in the Bronx, but I created the project for anyone who would like to come and see what can happen inside an apartment in South Bronx. Next slide, please. So I live in Mott Haven, South Bronx, which is right at the tip of South Bronx. This place of South Bronx is a very contested place for recent development. The neighborhoods are changing, the demographics are changing due to that. And this is something that is happening not only in New York City, it happens worldwide. So it's very difficult to remain even in the South Bronx, because it's becoming more expensive. Many people in communities that have been here historically for many years are being pushed away. And being cognizant of that, there's many things that I also have to be aware of when I open up my private space, because I'm inside a building. It's not a house. I am one of the apartments within a building that only has about 10 apartments. So many things that take place have to happen considering that I have neighbors, and some neighbors come to the space, some neighbors don't. So there are a lot of things to consider. I don't want to get kicked out, so I want to be very careful to have the activities happen within a time frame that I'm not going to disturb my neighbors, at 3 o'clock in the morning, or that crazy things are going to be taking place where I just need to be very respectful for that. And I think everybody that comes to the space understands that as well. So next to me, actually on the left-hand side of the image, I am one of my walls. The wall of the bedroom is attached to the wall of the Mott Haven, New York Public Library. So this library in Mott Haven was the first library built in all Bronx. And I feel very fortunate that I have the library as my neighbor as well. Next slide, please. Oh, and if you can see, my address is 309 Alexander Avenue, apartment 3A. So when I was thinking about what to name the next project here in the living room, next slide, please, I decided to call the project AAA3A, which is really, it's just it's the name it's basically the address of where I live. It doesn't have the number of the building, but that's officially my address. So some people say, ask, why did you call it that? Well, I called it because that is really legitimately my address. Next slide, please. And this is the living room. This is where everything takes place. When I returned to New York on October, or I returned in September, but I started the project on October 2016. I came back. I did not have a job, so again I had to start from zero. I have a lot of friends, like I said, because I did. I was here 7 years before leaving, going to Athens, and I was between Athens and New York. But I came back and I had a very low budget. So what I did is I did what Jackie Banfield suggested back in 2008. You have to ask. And I sent an email to friends, and I said, I would love to start this project in my living room. I don't have a budget. Is anybody out there? Would anybody be interested in helping me buy 4 tables and 8 benches? I am not going to kid you. I was able to get that money within a day. So once I put that out, friends, many close friends, and it didn't take that much, but I was able to go to IKEA, purchase these long rectangle shaped tables and 4 benches. And this is how I began the project. I began inviting people to exhibit in the living room. And in this case, unlike the Bronx Blue Bedroom Project, where my idea was to actually have only 3D artists, artists that only create, create installation or something more sculptural. For the living room, it's completely the opposite. Here, I am emphatically just saying everything has to go on the walls, because we bring out, during the opening, I have all these tables and the benches inside my bedroom. But after the opening, they have to come out, and I would not want anything to be damaged. So it's important that everything is directly on the walls, on all of the walls, and they can be on the entrance, or also in the short hallway going to the bathroom, but everything has to be directly on the walls. And we are actually seeing part of the show of the first exhibition that took place in 2017. I started the project in 2016, and I actually opened up, and it wasn't so much a project then. I wanted to exhibit some of the work that I had created in Athens before I came back, and I also wanted it to be a welcoming party to tell my friends that I was back in New York City. So the first exhibition I had in the space, it was still not called really AAA3A, was of my work. I wanted to have a gathering of my friends. And then in December, we had a holiday cell, where there I invited anybody who wanted to come and just show a piece of their work in the space and to sell it. It was a beautiful, again, another wonderful way to offer the opportunity for local artists and anybody who wanted to come in and showcase their work and have it up for sale. And so we did that in December. So then officially we really started the project in September, in February of 2017. And I began the project with the work of a local artist who I did not know whom I met in 2016. And I became really interested in not only in his work, but also in his personal story. His name is Marco Saavedra. And I don't know if you're familiar with Marco's case. His family owns a Mexican restaurant here in South Bronx called La Morada. La Morada is one of the most amazing, it's not only a restaurant, it's a community space. During the pandemic, it became a community kitchen that offered food for anyone who wanted to have a warm meal. And they have been, Marco Saavedra is part of He's part of the Dreamers. He has gone through, he not only works with his family in the restaurant, he is also a poet, he's an artist, and he was given political asylum in 2021 because of his activism. And his case, his case set a legal precedent for undocumented activists seeking political asylum in the US. And this took place in 2021. I invited him in 2017 to be my first artist, and I couldn't have been more blessed and happy to have inaugurated the space with someone as Marco and as his family that do and represent and do so much for the local community in South Bronx, but beyond. So I would highly recommend that you go through the list of artists that I've showcased in the space. And I'm not saying this just simply because, you know, I'm here in South Bronx and I'm running the space. And as you will see, I don't run the space by myself. There are many people behind the scenes and some that are not so behind the scenes. But I try to showcase the work of local artists, and particularly artists that are active within the community. So this is the work of Marco Saavedra. Next slide, please. Again, I was just wanted to show you some of what the benches look like and what the space looks like. It looks like in the living room. Next slide, please. And that's another view of the living room. As you can see, it's not a huge living room, but it's a big space for an apartment in New York City. Next slide, please. There's another view. So you can see how, you know, if we have two people sitting in each of those benches, and I have, at least we can get 16 people sitting there very comfortably to have a dinner or share workshops. Next slide, please. And this is what the tables and the benches look like when I put them all inside my bedroom. As you can see, the space is open, and I mean, there's nothing underneath. It's because I actually sleep on the floor, and I have a mattress that I roll up and I put inside my closet. So I leave so my bedroom is, I mean, that side is virtually empty to allow the tables and the benches to roll in. Next slide, please. And that's Marco's part of his show. There's Marcos speaking about his work during the opening. You can see some of his family, the picture that has his family during the opening as well, and some friends. On the lower hand, left-hand side, those are students from Parsons that came to see his show, and we have artist Donoso speaking about Marcos's work. He knows Francisco Donoso is an artist that lives in, or actually he has a studio here in South Bronx, but at the time he was working at Parsons, and he brought his students to share the work that Marco does, not only his artwork, but also his activism. Next slide, please. Like I said, I've been very fortunate to be able to showcase the work of local artists. This is Amauris Gurillon with the red cap, and his sister is standing right next to him. When I came back in 2016, I actually live in a block that is it's full of culture and creativity, because the block where I'm in, I'm right at the corner of Alexander Avenue and 140th. 140th not only houses the library, there's also a theater after the library, ID Studio Theater, and then the Bronx Art Space used to be a gallery space right around the corner from me. So I went to see a show in 2016, and I walked into, you know, a very random show, and I just heard someone say Miss Amezkua, and I had not heard anybody call me Miss Amezkua in a very long time. Like I said, I only taught for 5 years, and then I never went back to teaching full time. I do give workshops, and I am an educator still, but not as a full-time teacher. So I hear someone in the crowd in Bronx Art Space say Miss Amezkua, and I turn around, and it was Amauris. And Amauris was one of my students when I taught in Hunts Point and I didn't really recognize him because he also had a beard. But when I turned around and I saw those eyes, I said, you know, I recognized him immediately. And he told me about, you know, he said, I have this project that I'm trying to run or to create, and it's, you know, I'm trying to create a brand, but people, you know, I'm doing T-shirts, and as he said that, in my mind, I was thinking, okay, so then why don't you just, you know, do it in the space? And so we talked about it for a little while. He came to see the living room, and I believe he came to see the space in January. And so I said, you know, feel free to come and just open up the space, do whatever you need to do. And that's what he did. So Amautis has this wonderful project, or let's say it's a commercial brand, and it is called Bronx Native. And Amautis is from the Bronx. His family is originally from Dominican Republic, but he grew up in the Bronx. He lives in the Bronx. He's all about the Bronx, and he has created this brand that's called Bronx Native, where you can actually, and he has a shop not too far away from AAA3A. And it was what an honor to be able to see one of my students, you know, that now, you know, he's doing his thing, and he has created such an amazing, the brand has been able, again, not only, it's not just I'm selling T-shirts, but he creates all these different cultural events around the brand. You know, there's always poetry readings, there's book presentations, there's shows, and it was such an honor to be able to host him and to host everyone from Bronx Native in AAA3A, because he also wanted to transform the apartment as something that people think about the Bronx, that we know it, and it is and no longer is. It's shaped very differently, but he covered the entire apartment with what he saw as he was growing up in the Bronx. Next slide, please. And this is Bronx Native hosting a poetry reading. Again, we removed the tables and we just left all the benches, and we brought some more chairs. And this is another view from the windows towards the door. So you can see how the space really gets transformed as soon as we just, you know, with each show, everything is configured in a very different way. And this is the poetry reading was open to anybody who wanted to come and just, you know, as Rowan, you know, you would come and just, you know, recite your poetry. And then at the end, we all voted to see who was the winner. Next slide, please. Many people come to the space because they understand that it's an artist-run space. And by that, I mean that an artist-run space is really more of it's a creative space, but it's also a very experimental space. In the center, you see artist Krista David, and Krista had a full-time job. She was working, I believe, for Columbia University, but she felt at heart that she was an artist, and she wanted to just dedicate herself full-time to just being an artist. And she was recommended by another friend of mine who is also an artist that actually she lived in this apartment, Elizabeth Hamphy. And speaking with Krista, you know, she said, I've been doing a lot of collage, and I create these collages, but I just don't, I've never shown the work, and I'm just, you know, interested to see if you would showcase my work at one point. And I said, of course I would. You know, another thing that I love about having the space is that I have the opportunity to actually really get to know the artist. And when Krista just laid out what she wanted to do, and she said, I don't want to be doing what I do full time. I know she has a daughter, and she knew that she had, you know, making the change to spending more time doing her artwork and not actually having a full time was going to be a sacrifice, but a sacrifice that she really wanted to go into, you know, wholeheartedly. So again, I was very fortunate to be the first space to offer her a show, and I know that she now lives in the South, and she's just doing what she loves to do. She's a full-time artist, and you can find her work, and I would highly recommend that you go and see where she's doing and what she's doing, because she's an amazing artist that I know that you will be inspired by seeing her life story and seeing how she was able to become such a transition, basically, from a full-time job to being, you know, full-time artist now. So I highly recommend you check out Krista's work in the website. Next slide, please. And like I said, I offer there's always the opportunity for things to be exhibited, and for many people from different backgrounds come to the space. I have from children to seniors, from all different ethnicity. The demographics really also changes based on the artist that it is exhibiting, because the artist will bring their family or friends, and we have just very different things happening every single time. But like I said, for me, it is very important that the artists do extend their work, not only as they're exhibiting, and showing their work that they have, but also cooking a meal or giving a workshop. Now with AAA3A, I don't necessarily ask the artists to do both, to exhibit and I don't ask that they cook a meal and they give a workshop. Now they have a choice. They can either cook a meal or they can give a workshop based on the work that they're exhibiting in the space. And now we're seeing an image of a very special project or a special show that took place in 2017, where we decided to celebrate 100 years, or Juan Rulfo would have been 100 years. And we did it by inviting different artists to create work based on this Mexican artist, who happens to be one of the most prominent Mexican artists, who only created a very small books, but they're so loved and cherished for many reasons, that we decided to celebrate him as well in South Bronx. And this is from a reading that took place during a very special event that was organized primarily by a good friend of mine, who happens to be a playwright and a director. Her name is Virginia Grice. She sadly left us, and she now lives in Texas, where she is originally from. But during the time that she was here in New York City, and she comes back often because she's always involved in different projects, she was able to leave us with such she for me is a role model of an artist that you would think that because she's a playwright and a director, you would see most of her work, performed inside theaters or in very specific places. But if anything, Virginia is someone who, as long as there is a floor, and that could be in the street, it can be in any direction, anywhere, she can provide a very specific experience, and will, invite actors and dancers and singers to perform under, very specific, a very unique way to present plays and performances. I have never seen anybody be as dynamic and as versatile to allow spaces to be transformed in different ways. And for Juan Rulfo, she decided that she wanted, through the help of many of the community, and many people were behind her, but she actually created an entire 24 hours of Juan Rulfo. So every hour from 4 p.m. of 4 p.m. on Saturday to 4 p.m. on Sunday, every hour we had different events taking place. This was all her doing. All in the sense of organizing and inviting the creatives, whether it was someone reading poetry, whether it was someone just offering, a foot massage, or someone cooking. There was a lot of food involved as well, because we were there for 24 hours. So we had her partner, Marisela, who cooked for many of us during that entire time. And we thought, it's going to be taking place for 24 hours. People will might, maybe by 3 a.m. there will be, maybe basically nobody, but people kept coming, through the entire 24 hours. So it was just an amazing experience to be able to, here's like, for me, it was the first time that the apartment also dripped into not only the street, but also to the roof. And something very special happened in the roof during that time as well. And here in this image, we read, everybody's holding a book. which Virginia was very clever and quick to offer to purchase, you know, different Pedro Paramo, which is Juan Rulfo's one of his main. He didn't, like I said, he did not write many books, but this is one of his main books, Pedro Paramo, and people were reading Pedro Paramo in different languages. So someone would stop in English, then someone would pick up in German and then Spanish. There was something about really beautiful about listening to the languages and you know, listening, even though if you did not understand the language, but you could hear the names when they were reading, you know, the names of the characters, you could sort of guide yourself as to where you needed to be. And reading the book, I believe, took about 3 hours. So then after the 3 hours, then more activities took place. And it was really a really unforgettable, I think, experience for some of them that actually, some of the community members that stayed with us throughout the entire 24 hours. Some, of course, left, and they would actually, we had a couple that went home and slept, and they came back later. And next slide, please. And here they are, here's a performance that took place during the Juan Rulfo 24 hours. And this took place in the roof. Sadly, this was the last time we could actually access the roof. And it had nothing to do with the fact that, you know, we used the roof because it wasn't that many people up there. We weren't that many on the roof, but there are some changes. The owners of the building was sold to someone else. And now, sadly, I don't have access to the roof. So I'm glad that we were able to access it when we did. Next slide, please. Like I said, I opened the apartment mostly to Bronx-based artists, but sometimes I do offer. I also invite artists that are not Bronx-based, but that I feel that can contribute, you know, to the nature of what the space is. And I invited Greek artist Georgia Lale, and she's photographed in this image with her husband, and she decided to curate a show where she invited Greek artists and Turkish artists, and it was a very really fascinating way to introduce the art of artists that, you know, you would normally not see in the space, or maybe also even in South Bronx. So it was a very special moment for everyone to be able to see, to be familiar and to see up close a work by Turkish artists and Greek artists here in South Bronx. Next slide, please. This is Olga Correa. Olga Correa, I wanted to share Olga's work because I met her when I came back in 2016. And Olga was always attending either my personal shows or, you know, coming to see the shows. And she would come and see the shows, and I knew that she liked to draw because she always had the post office stickers. You know, like many graffiti artists are always, you know, trying to recycle anything that they can to be able to use as material for their work. And she always was carrying these stickers. And at one point in 2017, we were going to have a holiday art sale. And I said, you know what, can you just, you know, bring me some of those stickers? I think, you know, we should be able to sell some of your stickers here in the space during the holiday art sale. And I wanted to do it in a way to support her. She has a full-time job. She works for the city, and she's been working for the city for many years. She's actually retiring pretty soon, but she also has 2 daughters, and she was born and raised in South Bronx, so she knows the city like the palm of her hand. So when she brought the stickers, I also said, you know, and if you have anything else, you know, just bring it over so we can maybe, you know, also showcase that as well. She came to the house, and actually, she not only brought, and actually we did not meet in the apartment because there was a lot of chaos going on. So I said, can we just meet in the library around the corner for me? So she came to the library. She brought a binder, and she said, okay. So she bought a stack of stickers, which were, you know, amazing. Her main character is herself in her work. And I'm looking through the stickers, of course, amazing. She's an amazing, she went to FIT. She's done a lot of design, and I just love her work. So, but then she brought this binder, And as I'm going through the binder, I had never seen that work by her. And there's these amazing, strong women. And like I said, usually it's the characters are either her or her daughters that are portrayed in these very powerful images in, you know, a very graffiti style. And I had never seen her work. Immediately I said, you are going to be my artist for March. That's it. I don't know what you're going to do, but I need to have all of these, everybody needs to see your work, because I don't think, I had never seen it, and I'm sure many other people had never seen your work. And that was the case. Many people had never seen her work, and so I had her exhibit her work in 2018. Next slide, please. When she had her show, she knows all of the graffiti artists from the Bronx and beyond. I mean, everybody from, you know, many of Tat's crew, Al Diaz was here. There's a wonderful space that's run by an artist, a graffiti artist called Wallworks. Crash was here. I mean, I actually had, she also did something very generous, which is in the graffiti, in the, you know, graffiti artist world and style that happens, that I don't think we have in other creative worlds. They're always, they're carrying their sketchbooks, and they all tag, or, you know, they draw on the books, and they all share it with each other. And I feel like this is such a generous way to share your work with your friends, and they're always just, you know, everybody has the Sharpies. And so she did something very, that I wasn't expecting it, but she said, you know, I want you to put a New York City map at the entrance of the apartment, and I want everybody who comes in here to tag your map. And I did, you know, before the show, I picked up a map from the MTA, and I put it on the wall. And lo and behold, of course, at the end of the night, the map was completely tagged with so many graffiti artists, some that I do know, but I would say like 90% I did not know, sadly. And I had one day, I actually sat with her and I said, okay, you have to tell me who is on this map. And as I am, you know, researching all of the history, I mean, just by that map and that gesture that she had to say, like, I want you to just, you know, keep this. I felt like in some way she wanted me to really not only to have, you know, a piece of everyone, but it also was my lesson in my introduction to really understand who has been here before I have, and what is the kind of work that has been done before me showing up in South Bronx. And it's been such a, I'm very humbled by the fact that, you know, she has been so gracious and so giving in so many ways. And having Olga in the space was really, really such, I mean, if you go through the photographs of that opening was a complete party, like of something that Bronx Native was also, I mean, every single show has a certain spirit, and it has that spirit because of the artist that comes into the space and what they're able to, who are the people that follow that artist, and what are the things that artist can generate based on their work, on their humility, on who they are as artists, but most importantly, who they are as a person. And I'm very grateful for many things that Olga has brought into my life. Next slide, please. And like I said, you know, food is a huge component of the project. This is my good friend, Paul Lambermont. He is an educator at el Museo del Barrio. He's been teaching children art for many, many, many years. And I really wanted to have his work because no one like Paul knows the importance of art and teaching children to love not only their culture, but just really embracing the world as a whole. And so I invited Paul to exhibit his work. And he's also an amazing cook. So here he's bringing out his chile rellenos that he made for all of us during his exhibition. Next slide, please. And, you know, sadly, during the pandemic, many things had to change for all of us. I did not have shows, or if I had maybe one, I had one show in 2020, And then in 2021, again, it was, we had 2 shows, but for the most part, we were closed. And during the time we were closed, I invited some of the participating artists to just share what they were going through. And you can find those questions and their answers on the website. So for 2 years, you know, sadly, we did not have much going on for understandable reasons. Next slide, please. As Rowan mentioned in my bio, I am an active participant and a member of an organization called Running for Ayotzinapa 43. This is an organization that is, it's an athletes that were in solidarity for the missing 43 students from Ayotzinapa, Guerrero. This is something that tragically has not been resolved, and the parents are still searching for you know, what happened to their sons. We have one of the parents lives here with us in New York City, and he is actually the one, Antonio Tizapa began the running club. And in full support, we are with him and we run with him in the city, wearing the t-shirts and demanding justice for all of the parents that are still waiting for not only the missing 43, but for all of the disappeared in Mexico and the disappeared worldwide. So this is one of the images. This is one show we did in 2020, where I invited everybody who has participated in the organization to share images of either them running or them being in the protest or Don Antonio Tizapa is every 26th of the month, because tragically the disappearance happened on September 26th of 2014. Every 26th of each month, he is in front of the Mexican consulate demanding that he knows him and, you know, that everybody, all the families know what happened and who are the people responsible for the disappearance of his son and all of the other students. Next slide, please. We had a write-up in Hyperlogic, and I share this because of the importance of the importance of having others disseminate the information of what happens, not only for, this is a cause that I'm very, very involved with, not only because I happen to be Mexican, not only because I happen to actually also know one of the fathers, but because I feel that I can't even imagine what it might be to have someone disappear and taken away from your life and to not see them again. It's something I can't even imagine a pain of that nature, of that magnitude. So I was very grateful that Hyperlogic took notice of that show and highlighted it and mentioned it and shared it with their readers, so that they know that this search is still going on. This happened in 2014, and we're now, you know, 8 years into the situation, and we still don't know. The parents still don't know what happened to their sons. Next slide, please. And this is a show that happened in September. September, we decided to go back and resume our 4 shows in the fall. These are artists, Devin and Christian Rodriguez. These are actually photographs from Christian Rodriguez. They are originally from Dominican Republic, and they decided to have a show where they were honoring the women that are very important to them in their lives. Christian sadly lost his grandmother this year, and so there was an altar. There were paintings created by Devin, and the entire apartment became a type of sanctuary for the loss of his grandmother, and also honoring women in their lives. Next slide, please. And this leads me to the current show. One of the ideas, since I've been moving around a little bit, I have friends that live in different parts of the world, and I don't only have artist friends, but because I'm an artist, it happens that I do have a lot of artist friends. And while I was in Athens, I met some amazing artists that I feel that I needed to highlight, because not only I have one show reserved throughout the year for artists that are not only practicing their own work, but they also extend themselves by either having running a space, or they have some sort of specific community practice where they live in their neighborhoods, or that they are extending themselves, by in other ways, that they're not just only doing their own personal work. So I decided to invite Mary Cox, artist Mary Cox and Panayotis Bulgaris, who live in Athens and who also run a space in the center of Athens. And they've been running this space since 2016. They've been showcasing not only Greek artists, but also artists that are international artists that live in Athens, and some that are actually not even living there, but that are just, they know about the space and they're interested in participating. And they are currently here in AAA3A. We just actually opened their show this past Saturday, and we're thrilled to have them here with us. It's not easy for artists to travel, given the resources needed for this to happen. We're lucky that we will have Panayotis Bulgaris. It is also his first time in New York. We have both artists currently right now in New York City, but sadly Mary will have to leave a little bit before Panos, and she'll come back and then she'll go back to Athens. But Panayotis will be here throughout the entire run of the show, so everybody is invited to please come and see the show. It's a wonderful exhibition of photography and paintings of how they see, the city that they live in and that they love and that they breathe in, and the things that they can come and you can come and learn of how difficult it is to run a space where the resources to run a space are not as readily and available as they are for us in New York City. I am not saying that we have a lot of money coming through AAA3A, but I definitely do have more resources, because the artists, not only do I invite them to exhibit in the space, but I also, thanks to the help of my council and other organizations and friends that support the project, I can even give them an honorarium for participating in the project. And of course, everything else is paid for, things that I need to get for the openings, and also for either the workshop there's a wonderful organization in New York called Material for the Arts that graciously provides any material the artists might need throughout the run of their show as well. So with this, I would like to just say thank you for having me, and thank you for allowing me to share what this experience of having a artist run space in my apartment, in my living room in South Bronx. And here are some of the organizations that help me run the space and help the artists as well. And I'm very grateful to all of them, because without them, this would not be possible. And I also, a big shout out to all of the organizations that I have been able to collaborate with, like the Bronx Council, Enfoco, which happens to be an amazing, if you are not familiar with Enfoco, I highly recommend you look them up. They're an organization that focuses on really highlighting the work of the photo work of artists that are either Bronx-based or brown artists that sometimes don't have other spaces to exhibit their work. In fact, Enfoco does an amazing job. So yes, and the last slide has basically, that is our website, and that's the name of the project. And you're welcome to visit at any time and send us any suggestions, recommendations, or any comments that you might have, or if you want to learn a bit more of what it is that we do, because like I said, we do the workshop, we do the exhibitions, but we also have workshops in the space, and we have funders. I have family friends that fund projects that are through AAA and that take place in other parts of the city, but that are fully funded by a very special family from California, and we're very thankful for them. Thank you, Sila and Nick, for all your support as well.
Thank you, Ms. Amezkua, for being our artivist today. So today is the closing of Artivism Season 4. Many thanks to all artivists for another inspiring season. The deadline for the Artivism spring poster is coming soon. Also, stay tuned for season 5 and updates on the ongoing open call for the 2023 Wearable Art for a Purpose exhibition. For more information on this and all of the series posts and upcoming events, please go to the website www.adelphi.edu/artivism. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Artivism for Shared Humanity, or simply Google Artivism and Adelphi. Our YouTube channel is Artivism for Shared Humanity, and if you would like to get more involved in this ongoing initiative, please contact the Artivism team at artivism@adelphi.edu. I would now like to ask if there are any questions for our artivists. Please use the raise hand function on Zoom, unmute yourself, or ask your questions in the Zoom chat.
Oh, Blanca, I think you put yourself in the position of, rather than ask me, right? It seems many people are asking you. This is so beautiful. What opportunities you give. I remember when, back in 2007, 2008, when galleries were closing and weren't having all these big events, vanity galleries then came out, right? Which, young artists were had the mindset that, oh yeah, I can show my work in a gallery, not realizing they're paying thousands of dollars a year to show their work in the 10 by 10 space, which doesn't go very far and really means nothing if you have to pay to show your work. In these galleries, I tell my students all the time, if it, comes with a large fee and you can only show once, stay away from it. So thank you for giving those opportunities to so many that wouldn't have them otherwise. I think my favorite was the graffiti artists. They were just, oh my goodness, they all look so happy and so in sync, so beautiful. So thank you.
Archie, I thank you and thank her, but I'm kidding that people would walk in and they actually started crying because one of the walls was just full of all of her drawings that she had, that she has collected. What she does them during her breaks from work, and they were all in a binder. And so she was going through the binder. I said, oh, I said, no, I need to have them all. But yeah, some of her friends, I'm not kidding you, they really were crying. I have some picture, I didn't put them in there, but they were crying when they came in there.
Right.
Oh, how come we've never seen this work? And so now she's doing murals, and now all of the, the graffiti artists, because I did, during the introduction, when everybody was here, because it was really a full house, I said, now that you guys know the type of work that she does, now I want you to help her go out there.
That's
I did a show in here, now you put her out there. And now she's everywhere, just doing murals in Brooklyn and Chicago and Miami. And
wow.
I just love her. Yeah, she's
wow,
everywhere.
that's great.
So
that's
wonderful.
Great. So thank you so much. Carolina, do you want to do the takeaway for today?
Oh, definitely. But before that one, I have so many questions.
I know.
We're gonna have to do like a part 2 in AAA3A, definitely, yes. In person, Artivism taking over.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Carolina. Keep in mind the Center for Women of New York, which is at the foot of the Bronx Neck Bridge, right across the Bronx into Queens, which is a big space. If you ever needed a space to show your artwork, you let us know and we can kind of get it there as well. Go ahead, Carolina. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. No, actually, and thank you for the invite, because that's something I might do. I might take you up on it and say, like, bring all of the artists that exhibited in AAA3A.
Right.
We'll talk about it. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, no, we'll continue the conversation definitely for more collaborations after today's program. And I would like to also take a second here to thank our student ambassador, right? That she might potentially be one of your exhibitors also with her poetry, as you mentioned, and our audience members. Thank you always for your support here at Artivism. I have a couple of questions from the administration perspective of things, because in today's world, the museum has been changing so drastically. And what is the function of the museum? What purpose does it serve, right? Then here you come with an exhibition space that opens up for community, for artists, for all different media, right? And as you mentioned also, it was really intriguing to hear that it's not only in the US, but like in Athens, there are some happening, right? I was wondering, just to keep it like, let's say, because it goes a lot in depth, right? Just like first level kind of like an answer, right? What would you suggest to artists that would like to do something like this, that might be, watching your presentation from around the world? How did you get it started? I know you mentioned, like you came across, you were an immigrant and you were new to the city, but if they're in their context, right? Let's say, and they're like, I really want to do this, but I don't know how to get it started. I'm kind of stuck, but I love what Miss Amezkua is doing. How can I reproduce it here in my country, in my town, right? To bring the same kind of energy and initiative to this region of the world. Maybe we can start there.
Carolina, thank you so much for that question. And I think as artists, what we fail to sometimes consider is that any space is a possibility. And this is something I learned in Athens. I had never done it here, but I did it in Athens. Any place is a possibility. So if your local supermarket, a shop, you can do a show in somebody's house if you don't have the space, and a family gathering. But to really, but any space is a possibility. I'm not saying everybody has to go run and open up their entire apartment, but you know what? Even if you open up your bedroom, or if you open up your bathroom, or your kitchen, or even just one wall and just showcase one painting, this is another possibility. But as far as like artists, we need to have, I know that, the thing is that as artists, we there's a lot of things that need to happen within us to have that confidence to go out and do things, sometimes because we're so involved in our work, and some, we need to just kind of understand that we are providing a visual experience, and that experience is very subjective. Some people might respond positively to it, some people might not, but it's to have the trust in what you're doing. And it doesn't matter at what point you're doing it, but you just go out and do it, because only by doing it, and by that I mean, go show it at the laundromat, leave one thing in the laundromat, go show it, at your local library. Say, I have this, I'm an artist, and I just want to see how people respond to this. Can I leave my painting, and I want to, leave something under here? And even if nobody says it or does anything, something happens with us as artists. We become more confident. You're like, okay, you took it out of your studio, out of your house, out of, your bedroom where you work, and you made it. You took it out of the house. And by just doing that simple action, something happens within you. And it's not something that nobody's going to be able to teach you or not able. You just have to go ahead and do it. And once you do that, you do it in one space, and you do it in another space. So it's having the courage to just knowing that you have to let your work navigate within the world. And it doesn't matter in what space. The spaces will start coming to you based on the work that you're presenting. That will happen naturally. But it's you having the guts to do it and just go out there and do it. And then if you want to have your house, and then you want to open anything, but then you have the courage, and then you know how much commitment you're willing to give to specific projects. Then that's another thing. Or start things with friends. It all starts with you, with the willingness of wanting to have it out in the world and outside of your own private space.
That's right.
And it's also a way of opening up various paths. Because sometimes as artists, let's say, from the perspective of an artist, you might be looking for, I have to exhibit here, I have to be invited over there, all this kind of protocol of what is to be an artist, because, you exhibited here and you exhibited there. And on the other side, if you were to just do it yourself, right, what does that mean? Right, also in the art world I'm talking about, right, the perception of the artist,
right.
And it brings up both conversations. And that's why I'm saying we need to do a part 2, because it brings up kind of like a breakdown of the art world system that is in place, where the same ones keep being invited, the same ones keep being shown, the same ones keep being the ones that are the ones that make the canon, right? And then meanwhile you have an artist like the lady that you mentioned, right, that look at her work. It was in a portfolio. Now she had this one opening, and all her community supported her, and now she's traveling all over, right? So what constitutes an artist? What constitutes an exhibition? What constitutes curatorialship? It brings all those questions to mind, right? And not only from an artist perspective, but also from, like I was mentioning, from an administration perspective, right? Because you might be considered, what about the funding? Who's going to, you know, like, how am I going to promote these events? What is it going to bring to the center or like to the space to have this kind of artists in this place or those kind of artists? It's like so much to talk about, Ms. Amezkua.
No, it's true, Carolina, but also consider, that things have really changed with social media. If let's say, if I were to just start right now, I actually would have I would take something and put it in my local laundromat, my local bodega somewhere, and then I would take a photograph of maybe of someone looking at it, or while they're buying or waiting to pay, and maybe ask them, like, what do they think about it? What did it do anything? Do they think it's something odd that it's in a bodega and it should be somewhere else? How do they feel about just what reactions they have? Because I think now with social media, the kids or everybody has access to. You have the possibility of showing your work in ways that I think when I graduated from college, this wasn't happening. I couldn't access the amount of people and that people can access now, which I think is really, you need to use those tools. And make them work for you, because you can. There's just so much you can do because the tools are there.
Yeah,
I have to.
If Rowan goes out and just has a poem, a line outside in the street, and she screams it in some way, and someone's videotaping it, and you play that, you make a TikTok, I don't know, whatever you want. It's just going to have resonance because you're able to just go out and share it. But it's in the sharing that you need to be willing to do it. You have to share it.
I had
and get out of your head, basically,
Yeah.
I had 2 exhibits in Greece, in Crete, and they were advertising the exhibits the old-fashioned way, where they created posters. So I would see them at the beach bar on this side of the island, at the cafe in the village, in town, and there was something so magic about that also. Of course, it was on social media, but they still, would tape them on storefronts and on, beach bars and stuff. And it was nice to see that it's the same thing you're talking about. Yeah, sure, social media and it's out there, but it's also nice to see actually posted and see people's reaction when they see it, because that's what you miss in social media. You don't see that reaction.
Yeah. Well, we can go on and on here,
Yeah.
But definitely part 2 coming up.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. In 2 years. Roland, put your poetry out in the streets, please.
Yes.
Get it out there. Photocopy it and just paste it all over.
That's
Have
right.
people read it,
Yes. And what Professor Archie was mentioning before is that here in Artivism, we have the tradition of closing each presentation by asking our presenters one key takeaway for action from your presentation. What would that be today for you?
For action for anybody in general?
Yeah, like a key takeaway for action that you would like to leave our audience members from participating in your presentation today.
I would say that it's really important to share and to just have the confidence that whatever it is that you are creating needs a space, and it needs to be seen by others, and to just go out and share it in whatever way or form. Go out and share, especially these times where I feel we've been so isolated, and our minds are still kind of trying to, they're still shifting and trying to find a new place. Just share, just really, whatever it is, just make sure that you are sharing with your neighbors, with whatever it is that you do. Share it, because the way things are in this world, who knows, if we will have, who knows. So share and get it out there. Have the trust.
I love that one. I love it. Yeah. Professor Archie, take it away.
Thank you, Blanka, for being our artivist for today. Thank you again, Rowan. Keep writing, keep sharing your poetry. as long as you're writing it, you know we will share it, right? Every opportunity we get, we share Rowan's poetry because it's so beautiful, it's so powerful. Thank you to Adelphi University, Sing for Hope, to Jennifer Govan from Gottesman Libraries Teachers College at Columbia University, and of course to Dr. Stephanie Lake and to Carolina. Happy holidays, everyone, and hope to see you back in February for season 5. Be well. Have a good night. Bye-bye.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Happy
Let's go.
holidays, Dale. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Happy holidays.